detector thing.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Come on in. So thanks for coming today. I'm honored to be here in Oshkosh. And hopefully you'll enjoy my presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Convoy program and what life is like on the convoys and why you should join the Convoy program to see the country. So my presentation is going to be on the 5 W's of the convoy life. What are the type of people we want on the convoys? What is it like? Where do we go? When? And why should you participate in the convoy program? And spread our hobby to the rest of the country. In Baker City we stopped and they called us the Movable Museum. And that's really what the convoy is in a nutshell. The sounds and smells of the vehicles. We get to bring our hobby to people that might not otherwise have any interaction with our hobby. So, who do we want on the convoy program? Do you have the right stuff? Convoys aren't for everybody. But if you enjoy sharing our hobby and wanting to see it proliferate, you might be thinking, well, our hobby's in peril. The people are dying off. There's waning interest in historic military vehicles. This is a great way for us to get out there and share our vehicles with, like I said, people who may never have even seen a 5-ton truck before. Maybe they've never seen an M38 or touched it or smelled it. It's a great way to share our hobby with people. Like I said, the convoys aren't for everybody. They are mentally and physically strenuous. So you need to be made of some tough stuff, mentally. Driving all the way across the country, like Art did in his ambulance, standing on the clutch all day long without a complaint. Mental toughness. Being a part of something bigger than yourself. The convoys are bigger than all of the little parts combined. They're bigger than the individuals. They take on a spirit of their own as we travel across the country together. And it's something that when you participate, you'll never forget about it. Acting as an ambassador to the MVPA, this is an important one. Everywhere we go, everyone we see, everyone we interact with, we are the MVPA to them. So if we're in their town for half an hour, that might be the only interaction they have with the MVPA. So you have to watch your P's and Q's. You have to be an upstanding individual and act as an ambassador to the MVPA and share our hobby with everyone. That's one of the key components to the convoy program. Sense of adventure. Convoys are very adventurous. You get to see so many things, and sometimes what happens on the convoy stays on the convoy. But it's quite an adventure. Much more so than a car show or a static display. Patriotic, positive attitude. On the Lincoln Highway, we drove for thousands of miles with people standing out by their driveways waving American flags, and that's quite a sight to behold. So in the middle of the country, in the Midwest, for example, very picturesque, and it's a lot like you see in the movies. It's just nothing. And you have these long gravel driveways that come out to the highway. Well, for thousands of miles, literally thousands of miles, people will be standing out by the highway, waving their American flags. They'd have their chairs set up, just really cheering us on. It was really something to see. Again, something you don't see at a static display or a show. What does a convoy look like? This was coming out of Oregon City, I think. We were ascending the Blue Mountains, I think it's called. So there are all sorts of different types of vehicles on the convoy. For instance, I drive a tribute Jeep. It's not even a real Jeep. We have Jeeps, 5-quarters, 10.5s, everything from all eras, all types of vehicles. Side note, the convoy travels at 35 miles an hour, so if you're worried about getting run over or left behind, that won't happen. There was Half-Track Mike. brought a half track on the Convoy. I wasn't on that one, but so everything from Jeeps to half tracks participate on the convoys, including not so military vehicles like support vehicles, RVs, stuff like that. So we follow the march unit approach on the convoys. We head out in order. We're always in order. Advance and support lead in the morning. They set up 15 minutes early to scout the route ahead of the convoy so we don't run into any potential problems like road construction or anything that may happen between the planning phase and the execution phase. First vehicle out of the gate is a CO's vehicle in headquarters. That would be the XO communications. Any dignitaries or special guests of the convoy are in headquarters. And then followed by the heavies, the 2.5s, 5 tons, and then in descending tonnage to the quarter tons in the rear of the convoy. The very last vehicle in the convoy in the recovery unit is the trail officer. Their job is to make sure everyone in the convoy is ahead of them. They're the very last vehicle of the convoy. So it's a very organized program we have here. What does a typical day look like? This is the loneliest road in America, out in Nevada. So this is a very structured program we have, these long distance convoys. We wake up around 5 a.m. typically. Now the Jefferson Highway convoy is a little later, but typically we'll wake up around 5, have breakfast depending on your lodging situations and what the day looks like. I'll get into the lodging situations in a moment. We rally up at the rally point at 6:30, get in order, get ready to go, make sure we're good to go for the day. National anthem's at 6:45, and then immediately after the national anthem, advance and support leave 15 minutes early before the convoy. Like I said, to make sure that the route is clear. And support, that is your RVs, anybody that you bring along on the convoy that's not a military vehicle is in the support unit. They go ahead and organize our break areas and get us into a parking area and out again. Engines running, chalks out, lights on at 6:55, 5 minutes to first gear. This is the same structure every day, unless it's a break day or some kind of mitigating circumstances. And then CO departs the staging area at 7 a.m. on the dot. Not 6:59, not 7:01, 7 a.m. Then the rest of the day looks a lot like this in the photo, with a lot of radio chatter. You get to see stuff like this that you can't see at 55 or 60 or 70 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour across the country. So it's like that for a couple hours. We usually have at least one stop in the morning. Like I mentioned, the advance and support units arrive before the rest of the convoy. And we typically park in order so as to leave in order. So we'll pull into an area, headquarters will be up front, they'll depart the area first, and we'll be back on the road after a break in order. And subsequent breaks, lunches, stuff like that. We'll stop for lunch, it's usually an hour. This is on the Lincoln Highway. This is Smucker's headquarters, I think in Orrville, Ohio. Beautiful place, we had lunch there on the Lincoln Highway. Depending on the day's route and the length of travel for the day, we may have an afternoon break before we reach our RON for the evening. Sometimes lunch stops are pretty awesome, like Tony Packo's Cafe, made famous in the TV show MASH. Corporal Klinger always talked about Tony Packo's, and we stopped there for a lunch on the Yellowstone Trail. Sometimes our lunch stops only have one public restroom in the entire town. This was on, I forget what town this was. I think this might be John Day, Oregon. We stopped in this town, had no stoplights. It was just a tiny little, almost a ghost town, really, is what it was. And so we stopped there, had lunch. I imagine the restaurant, they have one restaurant. So I imagine the restaurant, it was really something. So we had to wait there for food. They were running around making food. Town only had one restroom, and there's Art Pope waiting for the restroom. Side note, Art Pope has been on every single long distance convoy since 1992. He is the OG convoy crazy right there. Sometimes lunch is on the go. This is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we stopped at this little convenience store, gravel pit, and that's my famous hood coffee there. Yeah, so sometimes there are no restaurants depending on our stop, so you have to be prepared for that and improvise. So eventually through the day we'll get to our rest overnight. Now our routes and our stops are all pre-planned, and it takes years of planning to put this together. This was in Baker City, I think. Kenny Adams was under the hood of his M35A1. There are all sorts of camping depending on what you prefer on the convoy. So you don't have to stay at the rally point. We don't have to all stay together and camp together. You can dry camp if you're set up for it. All the RV areas around the RON are pre-planned and listed in the communications packages that are sent to you via email far in advance of the convoy. So you have plenty of time to organize your overnight stays at every stopping point along the route. And some people like to hotel camp or live the big life, and that's okay. So there's plenty of opportunity for that on the convoy. There are usually groups of people, like this group of people will always go to a hotel, this group of people will usually go to RV, some people dry camp at the rally point. You'll see that on the convoys. Where do we go? This is Washington 504 heading up to Mount St. Helens. That's Mount St. Helens in the distance there, still smoldering. Side note, shortly after the Northwest Parks convoy came out of there, this highway washed out, and at this time I think this highway is still washed out, and the observatory is still inaccessible until they repair the roadway. MVPA convoys have spanned tens of thousands of miles across America. They've done the Alcan Highway twice, 1992 and 2012. The Lincoln Highway twice, 2009 and 2019. They've done the Bankhead Highway, which is the southern route across America. Route 66 from Chicago to the Santa Monica Pier. The Yellowstone Trail Highway. We didn't do the entire highway yet, but that convoy was from North Dakota, South Dakota actually, to Conneaut, Ohio, for Conneaut D-Day was the terminus of that convoy. The Pacific Northwest, that was a large loop around the Pacific Northwest, parts of the Lewis and Clark Trail, parts of the Oregon Trail. We got to see Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens. Very scenic convoy. The Jefferson Highway, which is shortly after the convention, October, pretty much the entire month of October, from East Grand Forks, Minnesota, down to the World War II Museum in New Orleans is the terminus of this convoy. And forthcoming is the Lewis and Clark Trail, so the MVPA is planning to do the entire Lewis and Clark Trail in 2026, and we're very excited about that. We have a rolling 10-year plan, so like I said, convoys take years of planning to put together and execute. There are always convoys in the works. You get to see some amazing things in the convoy, stuff that personally I never would have been able to see if not for the convoy program. This is Hell's Canyon, Oregon. There in the distance is Idaho. Side note, Hell's Canyon is deeper than the Grand Canyon in places. It's really hard to see on photo how majestic this is in real life. It's something that you'll never forget. Fort Wayne, Indiana, we stopped on the Yellowstone Trail. I put this picture up here because it's always neat when they roll out the red carpet for us. We stop at a lot of legions and VFWs across the country, bring a lot of people in that way to see the convoy. And the ghost town of Sumter, Oregon, where they did a lot of gold dredging here. Miss Rick and Molly Constine, I think Randy Day in the background there. This gold dredge traveled all over the area, digging its own moat along the way. And side note, you can see remnants of the dredging on GPS imaging of this area. The ghost town of Sumter, Oregon. Amazing. Never forget that. Sand Mountain, Nevada on the Lincoln Highway. So going down the loneliest road in America into Fallon, which is where the Top Gun School is, you just come across this gigantic sand mountain. It's much bigger than it looks in the photo. And Jim Diamond decided to drop his 416 and go try to ascend that mountain. I think he got about halfway up, turned around and came back. We were here in 2021 on the Yellowstone Trail. We stopped here and got some photos by that Dakota out there. When do the convoys take place? They generally run 3 to 5 weeks. They're long distance convoys. You're away from home for a while. They're broken up into regional sections, which are typically 300 to 400 miles, depending on the convoy. It varies. Stopping points are usually significant in some way. Rest days mark the end of each regional section and the beginning of the next regional section. So we're usually in an area for a rest day for at least 1 to 2 days. It gives you time to go get victuals, check your vehicle out, just have some fellowship, and rest for a day. Because mentally it's taxing being on the road that long. They're typically late summer, right before school starts, so we normally don't have to mess with school zones and children running in downtown America. This next convoy is a little different because we're running in October. This is very important. There's no mandatory commitment for the entire distance of the convoy. So if you register for the convoy, you don't have to go 2,000 miles. You don't even have to go for the entire regional section. If you want to participate for a day or two, if it works with your schedule, that's A-okay. We just have you start at a regional section and drop off wherever you want to. Why do we do this? This is in Sisters, Oregon. We had a rest day in Sisters, Oregon. Like I said, they call us the movable museum. The sights, the sounds, the smells. We come to them, so oftentimes we'll have people coming to see the convoy, not only at rest stops, but during rest days, and they may not have seen the vehicle that they served in since they were in the service. So this is a great way for us to come to them and spread our hobby to the masses. You get to see the country at 35 miles an hour. As I said, the convoy travels at 35 miles an hour. There's not too many situations you can do that where you're not getting run off the highway. So 35 miles an hour the whole way. You forge lifelong friendships and you become part of the convoy family. I see a lot of my family members in this room right now. You'll make friends with people across the country. I have friends across the country that otherwise I never would have met if not for the convoy program. And you get to network that way. Maybe there'll be something across the country that you're interested in. Your friend will say, hey, there's something out here for you. A great way to network and forge lifelong friendships. Reconnection and fellowship. At least a couple times now we've had people that met people they served with that they hadn't seen each other since they were in the service together. It's a great way for people to come together. Like I said, veterans come out. We were in a VFW once. We came in for a rest stop. They had their color guard out, flagging us into the parking area. I got out because I was hungry and started cooking. I was back by the trailer. And this old gray-haired veteran, Vietnam hat on, long beard, he came up along the Jeep and he grabbed that top of the Jeep tub right there where you always grab a hold of it. And he was feeling the wheel and he was touching the canvas and stuff. It was an emotional experience for him, I'm sure. And it's amazing to be able to bring that to people. We bring it to them instead of them coming to us. Thanking our veterans. It is a 1,000-mile-long parade, really, thanking our veterans. And every chance we get, we connect with them and thank them. Important that we see our hobby persevere. Like I said, our hobby's kind of in peril The older folks are dying off. There's waning interest in collecting historic military vehicles. This is a great way to get our hobby out there to people that might not even visit a museum, might not even have a chance to see our vehicles. And recruit new members. This is a great recruitment tool for the MVPA. Because like I said, we come to them. In my personal life, there's so many people, when I tell them I'm a member of the MVPA, they have no idea what I'm talking about. I have to explain the entire program to them. This is a great way to bring the MVPA to people. But it's not always honeysuckle and sweet tea on the convoys. This is a famous incident in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania that our President Kevin MD likes to talk about. Funny note, we had a rest day shortly after this. The Ohio Motor Pool put his Jeep back together and he was on the road for the rest of the convoy. So, stuff happens on the convoy. You have to pay attention, like I said, mental fortitude and physical fortitude. You have to pay attention. You have to have the right stuff. Sometimes you have flats, breakdowns in the convoy. If you have a breakdown in the convoy, you're not going to get left behind. That's what the recovery unit is for. Get you on a trailer, get you into the next RLN, then you can work on your vehicle. The convoy family is so helpful, you're not going to be left behind or without help. But flat tires do happen, and we're always prepared for that. And sometimes you'll have an engine go kaflooey. This is again in Sisters, Oregon. This is Sheriff Leon Wilmot. This is Union County Sheriff's Jeep. He snapped the crankshaft of his Jeep. And it was a funny break because it broke in a way that the Jeep would start and run. This Jeep would run with a broken crankshaft, but when he tried to put it in gear and go, it wouldn't go. So he tore this entire Jeep apart in the parking lot in Sisters, Oregon, and diagnosed the problem. They tore the transfer case out, they tore everything out, found out it was a broken crankshaft. That was the end of this convoy, unfortunately, but plenty of help there. And living a little bit of living history there, as we have so often found, people love to come and watch us work on our vehicles, and we're happy to have them. Not something you see at a static display. So that's our convoy program in a nutshell. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. Hopefully I answered some questions for you. Hopefully get you amped up to join in future convoys. So I'll take any questions you may have. Be happy to answer them. Sure.
Do you hydrate on the convoy?
You have to hydrate. That's right. Very important that you have water and liquids on the road, not just beer, but real liquids.
That's why we have them when you drink, right?
Yes, sir.
We went down a couple times to Arkansas. They were having convoy down there, 14 and 15, I think it was, and they were pretty well organized. They had they called themselves travelers.
Okay.
Down there in Arkansas, and we've got some members in Hell on Wheels there in Olathe. Keep in touch with them quite often, but they've got a pretty good system worked up. I think the second convoy was 100 miles right around the area, but they had it very well organized. However, that's their neighborhood, that's their backyard. It's so much easier for them to say, you know, we want to bring our convoy into your town. You guys are working in towns that you've never heard of.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's where you branch out from that nice little take a ride to let's take a ride.
Definitely, across the country. Yeah, it's very interesting. And like I said, it takes years of planning and coordination with towns and cities along the route, DOTs, law enforcement. For sometimes we'll have escorts through cities, police escorts through cities. So it takes a lot of planning to execute. But when it does, it usually goes flawlessly. My first convoy was in 2019, and I'll never look back. So hopefully you'll join, and you'll never look back too. Yes, sir.
John, can you explain how you deal with spare parts on the Convoy, how someone deals with them, how they prepare for them?
Sure. That comes down in the comms package. We have a list of suggested spare parts for your vehicle type and for your vehicle. And typically that's coordinated with convoy leadership, who's gonna carry spare parts for the Jeep, or who's gonna carry spare parts for the M37, so on and so forth. But yes, there is a list of suggested spare parts that you bring on the convoy in case of any snafus along the way. Anything you wanted to add to that, sir? Great. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Johnny, explain a little more about the purpose of recovery, how they operate during the convoy.
Sure, sure. So like I said, the recovery unit is the very last unit of the convoy, it follows the entire convoy. And if someone has a breakdown along the route, which it does happen, the vehicle behind them will pull off with them and secure the area. And eventually, recovery unit will come along because they are the last unit of the convoy. If you can't get your vehicle up and running by the time recovery gets there, on the trailer you go. And you're attached to the recovery unit until the next break or the RON. But yes, it's usually done very streamlined, so you're not standing on the side of the road for an hour and you're not left behind. Recovery has a very important job in the convoys, and we've had very, very good success with that format. Yes, sir.
Are there conversations, radio communication within the convoy?
Yes.
And are you split up into sections or groups?
Yes, so each vehicle type is part of their, that is their march unit. So the heavies are a march unit, that is one group.
And they can talk within the group or throughout the whole convoy?
Yes, we have convoy-wide communications at all times. Yeah, so it's really, we have great communication, great execution and planning. All you have to do is show up and participate.
I'm not a real technical nerd, nor was I when I worked in the engineering for the last 45 to 50 years. But I was sent a QR code that supposedly someone that knows more about the internet than I do can take your phone and zip in on that and find your current location in the convoy as you're progressing through the route. That is going to be my way of knowing when you're approaching my town for an RON.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, they're all planned out. So we're in a specific area, at a specific night. And also, we have a Facebook page, the MVPA Convoys page. And they usually telegraph where we're going and when we're coming into a town. And I think we're going to have a tracker on one of the vehicles, a GPS tracker on one of the vehicles with this future convoy. So you can just see the GPS coordinates of where the convoy is. Yeah, but in regards to the QR code, I think you just bring your camera up and hold it over the QR code and it should bring up a link for you to click on.
Not only that, do I not know how to do the Facebook also. I don't know what to do. But I'll find somebody.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I just had a comment. So
Yeah.
I wasn't one of the people that just did one segment of the Yellowstone Trail convoy because that's all I could take off of work, and it was very enjoyable. And I, like you said, you and everybody else welcome. You know, you just felt like part of the family right away.
Yeah.
And I would echo, you know, the level of organization and safety that takes place too. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, and you are part of the family. So,
I have another question. How many people in here are participants or would be participants for the Jefferson convoy? I'd like to talk to you afterwards.
Are there any information, resources, or planning assistance available to get vehicles to and from the convoy in the beginning and end points?
yeah, so sometimes we do have help with U-Haul, coordination with U-Haul to get vehicles to and from. Depends on the convoy, depends on the planning of the convoy. Yeah, but
So would you contact
Who for that?
Just contact the Convoy leadership through the MVPA. Yes, sir.
Johnny, if I could add to your comments, sir, are you a part of the Jefferson Highway Convoy?
I wanted to be, but.
Okay, I wanted to ask that first, but generally, just as Johnny said, when we're planning a convoy, we'll have one of our convoy volunteers may be assigned to reach out to someone like Penske or U-Haul, and we've had success. Not every convoy, but we've had success in getting them to cover. They'd eat the cost of the rental, and we eat the cost of fuel, which is fair enough. For a vehicle from a 3/4 ton down, anything bigger than that, obviously, U-Haul doesn't have any trailers for that kind of stuff. That's point one. Point two is what we typically do, and I'll get Johnny to explain what we do at launch but we have where we're marshaling to begin with, or as Johnny mentioned, at a regional rest point where regional stop where you might be coming into the convoy. We encourage guys that are, because everybody can see who's coming from where. We encourage people to talk amongst themselves, and let's say you and I were coming from Detroit, and we're going to let's say to Oshkosh. Well, if we can, let's travel together, and as we go along, maybe we pick up Art, who is coming from somewhere else, and we travel together, and both going to the convoy and then the same going back. You're leaving from California, there might be 15 or 20 of you that could arrange to go along, safety in numbers, and then this person pulls off in his or her state, and the next, and maybe by the time you're at the end, you're by yourself, but maybe you travel a certain amount together. So that can work as an option also. Just
Great, perfect, yes.
Johnny, how about the safety pre-check when, we all get to the starting point and we have to go through the checklist?
Yes, you bring up a great point. So all the vehicles are checked out for safety and mechanical feasibility to participate in convoy. We have an inspection sheet that the inspectors go through and make sure your brakes work, lights work, seat belts, all that stuff, fire extinguisher, safety vest, emergency reflectors, stuff like that. All the safety items have to be on board your vehicle in order for you to participate in convoy. So every vehicle is checked that way.
And you make sure that it leaks, right?
Yes, because if it leaks, it still has oil.
that's right.
All right, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Scotty, isn't it true you should run your vehicle, do several, maybe a 500-mile trip?
Yes.
Ahead of time, before the convoy, and anything that may be wrong, that's a good time to find out before you run the convoy. Because a lot of people do drive their vehicle to the convoy and then again home. So you'd like to have some miles ahead of time, things that may be ready to go, that's when they go, then you repair them when you're ready for convoy.
But then you don't have anybody to pick up a trailer.
What's that?
There'll always be somebody to pick up.
Well, usually the first day, we find out who didn't run their vehicle.
It'd be nothing more than a manifold bolt to pick up, the recovery will pick it up.
Thanks. All right, thanks, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, Johnny.
You too.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you. Thanks for supporting me and coming by. Sure do appreciate it.
Couldn't jump up with it.
See you soon.
See you soon, yeah.
Yeah.
Fix that up, produce it, keep it showing on a white sheet at our stops. Come watch it.
Convoy sales specialist.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again for coming.
Good to see you, buddy. Hi. I'm just kind of here.
A new convoy